Yayoi Kutsama was born on the 22nd of March in 1929 in Matsumoto, Nagano, Japan. She was the youngest of 4 children of a wealthy family who owned a large seed farm growing exotic varieties of flowers to sell all around the country. When she was 10 years old, she began to experience vivid hallucinations, which she described as flashes of light, auras, or dense fields of dots. These hallucinations also included flowers that spoke to Kutsama, and patterns in fabric that she stared at coming to life, multiplying and engulfing or expunging her, a process which she carried into her artistic career and which she calls self-obliteration. Kutsama's art became her escape from her family and her own mind when she began to have hallucinations. She was fascinated by smooth white stones covering the bed of the river near her family home, which she cites as another of the influences behind her lasting fixation on dots. Her mother was not supportive of her creative endeavors. Her mother was also apparently physically abusive, and Kutsama remembers her father as the type who would womanize a lot. When Kutsama was 13, she was sent to work in a military factory where she was tasked with sewing and fabricating parachutes for the Japanese Army during World War II. Discussing her time in the factory, she says that she spent her adolescence in closed darkness. Although she could always hear the air raid sirens going off and see American B-29s flying overhead. Her childhood was greatly influenced by the events of the war, and she claims that it was during this period that she began to value notions of personal and creative freedom. She went on to study Nihonga painting at the Kyoto Municipal School of Arts and Crafts in 1948. Frustrated with this distinctly Japanese style, she became interested in the European and American avant-garde, staging several solo exhibitions of her paintings in Matsumoto and Tokyo in the 1950s. By 1950, Kutsama was depicting abstract natural forms in watercolor, gouache, and oil, primarily on paper. She began covering surfaces, walls, floors, canvases, and later household objects with the polka dots that would become a trademark of her work. The vast fields of polka dots, or infinity nets as she called them, were taken directly from her hallucinations. The earliest recorded work in which she incorporated these dots was a drawing in 1939 at the age of 10, in which the image of a Japanese woman in a kimono, presumed to be the artist's mother, is covered and obliterated by spots. Her first series of large-scale, sometimes more than 30-foot-long canvas paintings, infinity nets, were entirely covered in a sequence of nets and dots that alluded to the hallucinatory visions. On her 1954 painting, Flower, DSPS, Kutsama has said, "One day I was looking at the red flower patterns of this tablecloth on the table, and when I looked up, I saw the same pattern covering the ceiling, the windows, and the walls, and finally all over the room, my body and the universe. I felt as if I had begun to self-obliterate, to evolve in the infinity of endless time and the absoluteness of space, and to be reduced to nothingness." After living in Tokyo and France, Kutsama left Japan at the age of 27 for the United States. She has stated that she began to consider Japanese society too small, too servile, too feudalistic, and too scornful of women. In 1957, she moved to Seattle, where she had an exhibition of paintings at the Zoe Dussan Gallery. She stayed there for a year before moving on to New York City, following correspondence with the artist Georgia O'Keeffe, in which she professed an interest in joining the limelight of the city and sought O'Keeffe's advice. During her time in the U.S., she quickly established her reputation as a leader in the avant-garde movement and received praise for her work. In 1961, she moved her studio into the same building as Donald Judd and sculptor Eva Hesse. Hesse became a close friend. During the following years, Kutsama was enormously productive, and in 1966 she was experimenting with room-sized, freestanding installations that incorporated mirrors, lights, and piped-in music. She counted Judd and Joseph Cornell among her friends and supporters. However, she did not profit financially from her work. Around this time, Kutsama was hospitalized regularly from overwork, and O'Keeffe persuaded her own art dealer, Edith Halpert, to purchase several works to help Kutsama stave off financial hardship. Many men artists copied her creativity, which made the men famous but not Kusama. Thus, she was not able to make money she believed she deserved. This frustration became so extreme that she attempted suicide. In the 60s, Kusama organized outlandish happenings in the conspicuous spots in Central Park and Brooklyn Bridge, designed to protest the Vietnam War. In 1966, Kusama first participated in the Venice Biennale for its 33rd edition. Her narcissist garden comprised hundreds of mirrored spheres outdoors in what she called a kinetic carpet. As soon as the piece was installed on a lawn outside the Italian pavilion, Kusama dressed in a golden kimono and began selling each individual sphere for 1,200 lira, or about $2, until the Biennale organizers put an end to her enterprise. Narcissist Garden was as much about the promotion of the artist to the media as it was an opportunity to offer a critique of the mechanization and commodification of the art market. During her time in New York, Kusama had a brief relationship with the artist Donald Judd. She then began a passionate but platonic relationship with the surrealist artist Joseph Cornell. She was 26 years his junior. They would call each other daily and sketch each other, and he would send personalized collages to her. Their lengthy association would last until his death in 1972. In 1973, Kusama returned to Japan in ill health, where she began writing shockingly visceral and surrealistic novels, short stories, and poetry. In 1977, Kusama checked herself into a hospital for the mentally ill, where she eventually took up permanent residence. She has been living at the hospital since, by choice. Her studio, where she has continued to produce work since the mid-70s, is a short distance from the hospital in Tokyo. Kusama is often quoted as saying, "If it were not for art, I would have killed myself a long time ago." From this base, she has continued to produce artworks in a variety of media, as well as launching a literary career by publishing several novels, a poetry collection, and an autobiography. Though she continued to make art for over 20 years, Kutsama was almost completely forgotten by the art world until the International Center for Contemporary Arts in New York organized a major retrospective in 1989. Since then, both her earlier and more recent art has steadily grown in popularity, reaching staggering heights of success in the last 2 decades that she could only have dreamed of in her youth. Major solo shows have been staged in locations around the world, including Mexico City, Rio, Seoul, Taiwan, and Chile. In 2009, Kutsama designed a handbag-shaped cell phone entitled Handbag for Space Travel, My Doggy Ring Ring, a pink dotted phone in an accompanying dog-shaped holder, and a red and white dotted phone inside a mirrored dotted box dubbed Dots Obsession, Full Happiness with Dots, for Japanese mobile communication giant KDDI Corporation. In 2011, Kutsama created artwork for 6 limited edition lip glosses for Lancôme. That same year, she worked with Marc Jacobs on a line of Louis Vuitton products, including leather goods, ready-to-wear, accessories, shoes, watches, and jewelry. The products became available in 2012 at a Soho pop-up shop, which was decorated with Kutsama's trademark tentacle-like protrusions and polka dots. Eventually, 6 other pop-up shops were opened around the world. In 2017, a 5-story building was dedicated to her life work in Tokyo, a museum so popular visitors have to be capped every day. One of the most popular works in the museum is her famous Infinity Room pumpkins. Today, at age 92, Yayoi Kutsama is the highest-paid living artist and has no plans to stop anytime soon. She says, "Even now, there isn't a single day when I'm not painting." Though her nightmarish visions still haunt her, she seems to have found a certain peace amongst them through her art. As she explains, "I still see hallucinations even now. Dots come flying everywhere, on my dress, the floor, things I'm carrying, throughout the house and the ceiling, and I paint them."